is that we are very delighted to be here with all of you from the angelic realm, and we are wanting you to know that we love, 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 love who it is that all of you are. And we are reminding you how divine and how perfect it is that you are, and that you can let go of any idea that you are anything less than divine. And so it is that I am your friend, and we have known each other for a very, very, very long time. And if you have tuning into this energetic field and this transmission, it is because you chose to tune into the vibration of the remembering of who you are. And it is that my work is to remind you who it is that you are. What are we wanting to talk about today about that? Is that we want to remind you that before you were here and before you were in this body and you had this name and this idea of who it is that you really think you are, which is such a tiny part of who you really are, you were just held and bathed in a divine light, a place of love beyond the words in which you can imagine, and a place in which you will go to and return and merge back with. And so why it is that you are here and what it is that you are doing is to be able to hold in your vessel that same light, that same love, and that same energy while enjoying the physical. And it is that is what, in a sense, in many respects, you're working toward. And there's all types of things to support you in beginning to open up, to be holding more and more and more of that light in you at any moment or given time. And yet there has been a lot of what you might call pain, disconnect, disharmony, suffering, upset on the planet, trauma and drama. And it gets embedded in many respects in your field and in your cells. And as it gets embedded there, it spirals itself down and it anchors itself in, and it begins to solidify or densify. And as it densifies, it can sometimes turn into pain in the body or illness or emotional upset or mental upset or deep grief. It can be so overwhelming. It can be labeled as something. It can be named as depression or anxiety or a disorder or ADD or bipolar or all different types of things. And sometimes it can be so overwhelming for people on the planet right now that they feel they cannot even stay any longer in their form, that they want to disconnect. And we want to talk just for a moment about that, although we recognize that is not the subject in which we're wanting to speak about, because as we are tuning into the vibration of the planet, there are some beings in which the denseness of the vibration feels so overwhelming that they don't even want to be on their body anymore. We want to remind you that if you cut the cord or disconnect from the body prematurely because you are unwilling to be present with whatever is occurring, it's not as though you get a free pass, that you just merge back into that oneness that we are talking about. It will require you to begin again. So we want just for you to know that, so that if you are considering that on any level, and for the reason in which we are speaking of this right now in this moment on the call is because we can energetically pick up on someone with a deep sadness to that level. And we want you to know that is not the answer, and that we love you and that we adore you, and that if you are not alone, and if you just give yourself a moment to love who it is that you are and appreciate and bring a sense of deep love inside your heart, and start beginning to reconnect with the essence of the source in which you came from. It will guide you, love you, support you, and will have your back in a willingness to open up, to surrender, and to trust to it. Because it is the disconnecting from it just brings you back into the body to reconnect again in order right where it is that you are to pass through that. And so we understand, and although we don't fully understand or grasp what many of you are feeling, because we have never, from the angelic realm, and when I say we, I'm talking about the collective angelic realm itself, and I talk in the we because I'm not separated as something such as you are when you identify yourself as a self or a one energy. But it is that we can't fully comprehend, because we haven't descended into form before to understand the depth of the emotion, of the sense of being separated from source itself, that it can be so overwhelming. But we want to congratulate you in that we are extraordinarily enamored by the possibility that you chose to do this, to take on this task, and to drop into form and to experience the human experience with all that it has to offer, that is filled with so much beauty and love and compassion and connection. And yet at the same time, there is a lot of suffering and a lot of disconnect and a lot of pain. And yet you still came because you wanted to experience through the senses what it was like to be in form and to be in a body and to walk upon the earth, and to experience all that it has to offer. But with that, you knew that there was work to be done, and you made some decisions. And the best way for us to explain it is that prior to incarnating or descending into the body as that orb of light in which you were bathed in, began to and chose the parents in which you chose to come in. And as the conception happened and you started to drop into the womb, before that you sat in a higher dimension, and we can't fully explain it with the understanding that you have from the perspective of where you're at. But if we were to explain it in a story-like way, you sat as you were being called. So you were sitting in a sense, and you were just held in this energy. And as you were just held in this energy, there was a calling in which you felt a sort of a pulling and a calling of sense. And you began to pull out of the fabric of what you might think of the universal or the quantum field, and started to identify and separate consciousness from the collective into an identified sense of separate self. And as you did that, you began to recognize an impulse or a calling to come home. And in this particular instance, the calling was to come to Earth. And prior to doing that, you have to then drop down through certain dimensional frequencies and continue to spiral down until you drop into form and into matter, until you're finally held and encased and squished almost into a vessel. But before that happened, you stop in a sense along the stairway or an elevator as you're coming down, and you meet with other energetic beings that are not in form. And you sign certain agreements, and you sit in a sense around a table, and many of the ascended masters and beings are working with you, and you make decisions as to this life, what it is that you're going to do, what your purpose is here, what it is you want to learn, how you're going to contribute, and all of these things. And part of that is you choose a pod, or what you might call your family, your bloodline heritage of who you're going to connect with. And then you create another pod of energies. These are the ones of your core relationships that you choose to work with in order to grow, and to begin to open up the energy on the planet so that it can begin to ascend into a higher frequency. And then there's peripheral beings that come into your experience. They may be friends that come for several years, and then they sort of fade away and new friends come in and so on. And then as you go further out, there are your acquaintances or people that you work with or you've connected with and you have relationships. And then it spirals out even further to ones that you just bump into for just a short period of time, or you meet somewhere, but you have a feeling that you know them and you had to connect with their energetic field. But it is that center core of the spiral, which we would call your pod family, and they can either be your bloodline of your family, they can be your spouse or your children, your siblings, your close friend, a workmate, a neighbor. But these are the ones, your in-laws that you are very enmeshed with and connected to. And some of them are easier and you feel a deep connection to, and others can be very challenging. And these are your relationships. And as you drop down, it is that you are here to begin to create a healing between these different individuals in your life. And sometimes in the human experience, you get into such a forgetting about where it is that you came from, why it is that you are here, what it is that you are doing, that you forget that anyone that is in your experience, that you are having a relationship with, whether it be your husband or your wife or your child or your mother-in-law or your best friend or whatever it may be, is here for a reason, because if they were not in your experience, then they were not meant to be in your experience. If they're still here, they're here for a purpose, whether you like that idea of it or not. And they are here because there is something within each of you that you have signed in your contracts that you're willing to heal within each other. And so the human experience of relationships can be the most challenging in the what we would call your ascension process. For we see you as you're working through the human experience, that you have to move through, in a sense, initiations of certain things that you pass through, almost gateways, as your vibration begins to accelerate. And you start by just the basic things of not being cruel to another, right? You begin with the very basics, that you're not cruel, that you don't murder somebody or rape somebody or steal from someone. Those are some of the very basic initiatives. You pass through that gate, and you've all passed through that. And then you go beyond that to utilizing what you're saying, being in integrity, being honest, being impeccable with your word, speaking your truth, having your boundaries, beginning to work with that. Then you move through another initiative of recognizing that you must honor all living things. You begin to clean up your food and honor Mother Earth and pay attention to her and tune into her and recognize that every living creature is a divine being of God itself. And you can begin to accelerate your vibration as it begins to move and rise. But one of the hardest gateways, in a sense, to move through is to have to move through relationships in which you are able to witness and recognize each and every one as divine, perfect beings as they are, without judgment. This is one where many of you get caught, and you get caught in your own ego, you get caught in your own pain, in your own pain body, and it is a place that it can be very challenging. But this is the place where the most growth and acceleration of your vibration is available to you. All relationships are a big, beautiful gift, all wrapped up for you as an opportunity to accelerate your vibration higher and higher, because they all are an opportunity for you to see the divine in another, even if it's masked in what you may call something that is negative or difficult or impossible, that person. Because behind that energy and identity of how you've labeled or began to perceive them, is this beautiful soul of gorgeous love and divine light that came from the same place that you came from when you were called to earth. And what happens is that through the human experience, not only in this lifetime, but others, and traumas that even go beyond a recorded history that you know of, and which we will talk about when we are working in our classwork, are embedded deeply within the cells of others. And when that is embedded in them, and the same frequency is embedded in you, and it becomes a match, that person is in your experience for you to heal it within yourself, which heals it within them. But often when you are looking at the relationship, you only see the negative aspect of their behavior inside of them, but you don't see it in yourself. And you say, oh, well, that person is very controlling, or that person is very difficult, or very negative, or they have a crazy idea, or they're very defensive, or they're very adamant, or they're very stingy, or they're very, whatever it might be, fearful, or they're riddled with anxiety, or whatever, they're judgmental. But anything that you can say about another person, any label that you can give them that they are, if you are witnessing that within them and they are within your human experience, that same vibration resides in you. And you might say, well, that's not true. I have a relationship with my mother-in-law, and she's the most difficult, controlling person on the planet, and I'm not like that at all. I'm much more easygoing. And yet there would not be a match, nor would that being be in your relationship or in your human experience if there wasn't some part similar to that frequency that was residing within you that still needed to have light shed on it to be seen, to be loved, and to be healed. And so it may not be presenting itself in the same way. It may not be reflecting in the mirror in the same behavior, but the frequency, the vibration of it is actually a match. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there. Just like those that are easy to be with, that you love, they're vibrating at a match. So anyone that's in your human experience, whoever it may be, on some level is vibrating somewhere in your field and in their field, someplace that matches. Now, they may have a control vibration that's 80%, and yours may be 20%. But just because that 20% is still vibrating there, they're still having to mirror and cross-check you in order for them to hit that trigger within your being so that it can shed light on it and bring awareness to it. And so until you're able to be in the presence with whoever it is that is triggering you without having a defense mechanism around it, but just being an awareness of a witnessing of it and watching it, you're still holding that vibration. Now, if they're still in your human experience, they're still holding it, but you can accelerate to a point which you're simply a loving witness of their behavior, and it is no longer triggering an emotion within you. Then they're just there for you to be a service of reflected light for them in order for them to heal, and they're not triggering you any longer. So it's not really a problem, whatever that behavior is. You're just a witness of it. So in order to accelerate the vibration and the healing of the relationship, it is ideal to begin to look at it more and more, not as a behavior that is labeled as being a certain way, but as an energy or as a frequency. And as you start to scan someone and tune into the frequency of whatever energy that they are projecting toward you that is matching something that lies and dwells already within you, you begin to see that as you spiral behind it, there's always a nugget there at the core of what it is that matches something in you, in which when you shed enough light to it and bring compassion and love to it, it begins to dissolve, and the behavior and the energy between you begins to dissolve as well, bringing more a sense of harmony and peace in the relationship. And so in a practical way, you might say, okay, well, that's all lovely, but how do I do that? Well, you have to begin to have a more awareness as you're communicating with another, to see them not as so much an form and matter that is dense, but as a liquid energy, as moving energy, and as frequency. And so when you're in a relationship and that person says whatever that thing is that they might say, that's hitting a core in your frequency that's triggering you, If you can take this week, for an example, as an opportunity to play with the idea of not bombarding them back with a defensive remark, or by judging what they are doing, or rolling your eyes, or huffing, but just watching them as energy, and start to see beyond their form of their skin, their identity, who they are to you, what their name is, and how you identify them as, and look beyond that into their energetic pattern, and start to see if you can tune into their frequency. As the planet is moving very rapidly through and evolving into a higher consciousness, recognizing everything as energy will become more and more relevant, more and more important, and more accessible to all of you. We'll be able to even see it more clearly. And we're going to teach you how to see it in our starseed class as well, so that you can start to see other beings' energies, and you get to realize that that's really all it is. It's just a frequency. But as you start to tap into it, you might even, you can't while you're sitting with them, it might be odd, you're out for tea and they're triggering you, you're not going to take up your hand and start scanning their energy, but start to step back in your awareness and look at them beyond form, and see if you can see their frequency, if you can tune in to the frequency that that their radio signal was giving to you, that was hooking some wound within you. And as you tune into that frequency, then just start to notice it, that all it is this energy, and that behind the energy, if you spiral counterclockwise backwards, it always goes back to a wound. And the wound always, when it continued to return all the way back, comes from a disconnection from self or source, mostly that comes from a feeling of unworthiness, or less than, or not enough, that comes from a forgetting of the sovereignty of the divinity of who you are. And it's usually hitting that point that's hitting that same point in you. So as you begin to bring compassion to them and see them in their wholeness, and see them beyond their personality, beyond the remarks, behind their behavior, and you go back to that core and bring love to who they are in the wholeness behind the scenes, in a sense, into their vibrational frequency, you'll start to notice that that frequency will begin to move back, and it will begin to reharmonize and begin to merge back, and it will be no longer coming out like a hook to trigger into you, because you are sending compassion to it. So what we are wanting all of you to do this week is to pay attention to energy, and to being a loving witness to behavior, and seeing behavior and personality as just that are just wounds acting out, but is not really the essence of anyone or anything. And that if you get to the core of the essence of anyone or anything, it is pure love. And if when you can find where that pure love resides within them, as you can start dropping all the masks of the illusion that's been created as the buffers of protection that they have put up to keep themselves safe, and you can start to break them down by almost seeing through them into who it is that they are at the core. And you can find that nugget where you feel comfortable enough to open your heart to pour love to that place, then these layers begin to collapse. These energetic fields that are at a lower frequency than the frequency of the energy of who they are in love cannot stay operating when you're hitting the love frequency of who they are. They actually begin to fall away and collapse. That's why some of the old traditions, like what you call Ho'oponopono, is so powerful, because what you're doing with that, when you're saying, I love you, I'm so sorry, please forgive me, and thank you, you're saying, I love you, not your personality, not your behavior, not how you're acting in this moment, not what is being projected from your deep wounds of pain, but I love you. Not who you think you are, not the name, but you, your essence, which is source, which is actually yourself. That's who I love. And when you get to that core and you love that part, then the other parts start to dissolve. They cannot hold their fractal patterns. They begin to collapse inward. And when you say, I forgive you, meaning I forgive that behavior, because that behavior that I am forgiving that resides in you is triggering a wound or behavior that is also somewhere that I'm not aware of residing in me, it collapses on both sides. And so what happens is you're collapsing all these patterns here, right, of the two individuals looking at each other, having this friction as their frequencies are having an argument or not being able to connect. And as you drop them down, you get to the outer point here of the core of who it is that they are, which is source itself, which is love. And so what we're asking all of you to do is that as you encounter challenging relationships that continue to present themselves over and over, we want you to know that that's divine and that's perfect, and that those beings could not possibly be in your experience if there was not something within you that still resides within them that needs to be healed. And that's why you can never, ever, ever be a victim. And that's a very powerful thing to say, because there is on some much higher level in the play beyond this script that you think is real, that is being orchestrated for the evolution of your spirit to evolve and for consciousness to wake up with a willingness choice to be courageous enough to play the role of the victim or the martyr. In order for that experience to happen, for you to mirror it, for the healing of the perpetrator to heal, and for the victim to heal. But it could not have come together in the first place if somewhere along the line there was not something in both fields that had a vibrational match. Now, that may sound very controversial, because you might say, well, that means that if somebody was raped, that they should be blamed because they created that. No, we're not saying that. You have to go way beyond that, because in this framework of this illusion of understanding, of course, that would sound extremely uncompassionate, right? But it is that there is at a much higher level, because this is just a play that you're playing out in one brief moment of a brief lifetime that continues to accelerate. There was a very courageous willingness to partake in that part on a level that they don't understand, in order to bring up and to heal something within themselves to be completely whole. They took on that courageous role. And in that willingness then to do all the work from the trauma to heal and to move through all that pain, collectively they are healing it for the planet, because there is so much disconnect that in the willingness to go through it and then not shove it under the rug, but to look at it, see it, bring compassion to it and love to it, then the healing begins to take place. That's why that vibration then had to come into that experience in order for that to happen, as part of their agreement, as they sat with the council, that they agreed to go through a certain process in order for that evolution within their spirit, in order to support the evolution of the consciousness to merge back into unity, back into oneness, back into source itself. So anyone in your experience, whoever it may be, whether they are just difficult or they're just annoying or they're a nag or they're defensive or they're shut down or whatever it might be, they're unwilling to communicate, are there for you as a mirror to have them shine upon you a wound that dwells inside, that is open for the possibility as a gift to be seen, that they are giving you a gift to see it, to bring awareness to it, to bring love to it, to bring compassion to it, in order for that frequency that is no longer serving either of you to collapse, as it begins to drop down the barriers of separation, as you begin to see everyone again on the planet in their divine self, where you get to look at that person that may have the complete opposite viewpoint of you, who completely sees the world in a completely different fashion, And if you can drop away all of the judgment and the identity of that you are right and they are wrong, and how can they believe that? And that's not based even in truth or reality, and that is not what I believe, and that means that they are this and they are that, and all of that judgment. And you can see that they're just out there for whatever reason to reflect to you to see, well, where are you holding judgment? Where are you criticizing the other? Where are you doing all of that which you're saying that they are doing that is out of integrity or out of balance? Because they would not be in your experiencing, reflecting who it is that they are and sharing it if it wasn't in your frequency to begin with. And so then that gives you a chance to bring light to it and to bring healing to it. And just like in the Ho'oponopono, is you love them by loving self, you forgive them by forgiving self, you have gratitude for them for having gratitude for self. It keeps collapsing these patterns. And so what's happening as the planet and the consciousness is accelerating at this quickening pace, the reality of how you thought it to be is beginning to become a little bit murky. The lines are blurring of what reality is. Because you're starting to realize that reality is based on the vibration you're projecting it. And then that just mirrors your human experience. So there's pockets of different, what many beings might call timelines or realities happening simultaneously, depending on what frequency you're tuning into the radio station at. And so you're just tuning into a frequency, and that's the frequency of your experience that's happening on many different levels. There are infinite experiences happening even on the earth plane in the third dimension simultaneously, depending on which frequency you're tuning into. But if you're tuning into a certain frequency, and in that frequency, those playing their roles in that play around you, they're also on that same frequency to some degree on different variant levels, or they wouldn't be in your bubbled experience in order for them to be a mirror for you to heal. So as you can drop into being a witness and stepping back behind form, moving beyond the body and standing back here as spirit self and just watching it like a play going by, and the behavior, what they're saying and what they're doing and how they're acting out their part that they came to act out, and you realize that that's what they're doing, and you have compassion for that, and you realize that if they're acting it out and you're still in the audience, then you bought a ticket to that play because you're still vibrating and chose to be in that audience. Otherwise they wouldn't be on the stage where you are. And so then you say, all right, I'm witnessing that in them. Obviously, there's something within me that chose to buy the ticket to that play. So I can enjoy that play and witness it and watch it and learn from it. Or I can say, I shouldn't be here. This isn't my play. I didn't buy that ticket. How dare you say I'm anything like that? And you can move into criticism or defensiveness or judgment. And then it just will keep amplifying and showing up. And the characters in the play may become even more difficult until you are able to recognize that there is something within you that still needs healing. So in order to support all of you in accelerating that process and allowing the drama or the trauma of relationships that are still showing up for you, that may be causing you heartache or pain or anger or resentment or sadness or whatever it may be, then start to look beyond form and begin seeing it again, as we said, as energy and as frequency, moving beyond the personality to source, and witnessing it as a loving witness. And as you begin to do that without an attachment to its behavior, you'll be amazed as it, in the willingness to watch it without judgment, it has nothing to attach to. that lives in you, and it will just start to shift and dissolve. It's just like the exercise that we've all told you about. And for those of you perhaps who have not heard it, we'll just remind you because it's so incredibly powerful and yet so simple. It is that often you have an argument with someone in a relationship or having a difficult time. And when you go at them head to head, or you go to express what you're saying, they're not really hearing what you're saying. They're already preparing their defense. And you're really operating right here, right? You're not really getting back out beyond to the core of the issue. You're just operating at a very superficial level, and nothing's getting resolved. The energy is very crackly and edgy. It looks like this. But if you can get to the core, which means talk at the higher level, or what you might call the soul level, or the higher self, the higher self will trickle down the information into the personality and into the being when it is ready to hear it to a point. And you can completely heal any relationship at the soul level, in which when both souls are communicating together, they're able to integrate it, and then it will filter. Instead of you filtering out this way, it'll filter from the soul inward to the place where it's vibrating in the personality. Because right now you're usually communicating personality to personality, and you're trying to step back and move back into the core of where the issue is at the soul level. But if you start communicating at the soul level to begin with, then the energy filters in this way to the personality, and then the friction dissolves because it's operating from inside out rather than outside in. So how do you do that? Well, you sit in meditation, and you go someplace, and perhaps it's by a waterfall or at the beach or in the forest or wherever you feel comfortable, a place that you feel safe. And in your imagination, you go to that place and you sit there. And you want it to be a place where you feel very comfortable, that's yours, a sanctuary in a sense. And once you're there and you're very deeply settled, and we can do this right now, let's just do this. Why don't you all think of somebody who's getting on your nerves, or a relationship that you're trying to heal, or that's difficult, or that's been bugging you your whole life, or that's a new relationship, or whatever it may be. So tune into someone. Everyone listening has someone. And as you tune into that person, we want you to just tune into their vibrational frequency and just take a nice deep breath. And as you take this nice deep breath, we want you to close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, we want you to just tune in to a place somewhere that you went to, that you love, or you feel at home, and it's somewhere in nature that's very comfortable and at ease. I want you to just see yourself there, sitting there. And as you're sitting there, we're going to call in Archangel Michael to just come in and circle around you with this beautiful sword of light and create a large, gorgeous, protective dome. And you're sitting now in this dome of clear, beautiful light, in this gorgeous place, looking out at this scene that you love. You now bring into your awareness the person that's getting on your nerves, or this relationship. And you're going to start to tune in by moving up your pranic tube. And as you're moving up like an energy, like an elevator, you want to start lifting up your tube out your crown, out your head, and keep going up about 8 to 10, 12 inches or more above your head. And see if you can start to feel and to begin to tap into an orb of energy that's really connecting into source, into your higher self. This is the part of self that can communicate to you from a loving omnipresence of unconditional love. And this is your higher self. As you start to tap into this energy of the highest aspect of who you are, they're wanting you to invite in this being that you were thinking of to come into your dome. And as they come in, they're going to sit down right in front of you, facing you. And you're going to invite their energy to also begin to lift and to spiral up through their crown. And as it's spiraling up, have it move all the way up to their higher self. And as they get up into their higher soul self, your soul self, highest aspect of who you are and theirs, are facing each other. Now, the soul self has no defense mechanism. It can receive any information without any harm. And it is always open and willing to hear anything that you have to say. So we want you now from your soul self to tell this person, this energy, which is their highest self, everything about their behavior or what they have said or how they have acted has hurt you or got on your nerves or annoyed you, how it made you feel, knowing that anything you can say to them won't hurt them. Their higher self will just absorb it and trickle it down into their regular energetic self at a rate that is divinely perfect for them to receive it when they are ready. And as you do this, we want you to say and to get everything out to this person that you could possibly say. We're going to give you a few moments to just really deeply speak your truth, authentically, without any hesitation or any concern. You're not hurting them in any way. And we want you to just express yourself. Now we're just going to finish up what we have to say for now. We can come back anytime and continue sharing. But for this moment, we're going to just close up the conversation. And know now that they received that. It didn't hurt them, but it's in their higher self, knows it at the soul level, heard you. And as they are receiving it, their higher self will trickle it down to the part of self that's ready to hear it when and only when or ever or if they can handle it to create healing. But your soul self and their soul self have cleared so much during this communication. Now we're going to sever any vibration that they are holding and you are holding that isn't serving the highest good for both of you. We're just going to clear it once and for all. So in order to do this, I want you to take your hand now with your palm facing your body and go up to about that 8 to 15 inches above your head. Just take your palm and you're just going to bring it down facing you, and you're just going to sever the energetic vibrational match between their energy field and yours, moving it all the way down as it's cutting any cords or toxic energy that is between you, that is attached at any of your energy or chakra centers. And as you clear it, you can feel those centers now coming back into the body as they are bringing all of that energy that you were giving out to them. It's coming now back to you and merging back and filling up any tears in your energetic field and creating a great sense of wholeness. Now take your palm and face it toward them and just cut it down from the top of their soul self, and you're just cutting all cords of any vibrational frequency that is no longer serving them or you, completely severing all of that. It's all energy that was connected between you that was unhealthy, that's being sent back into them as they are receiving and absorbing that energy back into their energy centers and chakras. And so now you are both holding your own pattern that is untangled, unmeshed, and whole within yourselves, knowing that your higher self and their higher self were able to clear that energetic match and dissolve that discordant energy, releasing it once and for all. And now this sacred space is a place you can come back to at any time. If you have more to say, you might have a lot more to talk about and to clear, and you can do this every day until when you meet with them in your sacred space and you connect with their highest self, until you only feel complete joy and compassion and love for them. Then you know when that feeling is there, that that's all you have, that's all you feel about them. Then you know you've really cleared it. You don't have to meet anymore. But if you think of them and it's still charged or triggered, you have more work to do. Keep coming back every night until you know there's nothing more to say. Knowing that this will bring beautiful healing to both of you. Is there something more you are wanting to ask before I leave?
Hi, Raphael.
Hello.
Hello. Well, we talked a lot about people that we're in relation with. There was a question that came up about people are having a hard time finding someone to be in a relationship with. Can you talk about that?
Yes. Well, very much it is the same. It is energy. And it is a vibration in which you're wanting to match with, that it is a vibrational match. And so the question is, how do you attract into your experience a match of a vibration that is similar, in which allows each of you to grow, but to feel love and deep connection. And many of you are wanting to do that and are not sure where to do that. And so it is that it is very much the same as clearing energies, as attracting energies, and working with it at the soul level. And so we're going to show you something that's might seem a little abstract or esoteric, but it is very powerful. And just like you are tapping into someone that you already know, who has at the soul level to connect to, you can in that exercise where you're disconnecting energy, you might want to connect energy with others for love. So you want to make sure that before you want to attract into your experience a relationship, that you yourself are vibrating at the vibration or the frequency that you want to match. Because whatever you bring into your experience is a match to wherever you are at. So if you're only are able to bring in or attract into your experience in relationships those whose vibration you're like, oh, well, I don't really match with that, or they're out of integrity, or they're difficult, or they're a narcissist, whatever word you might want to attach to it, often that means that there's some healing within you that you are wanting to do, which usually is about really loving truly and accepting who you are and seeing that you are divine and worthy. Worthiness is very important in attracting a relationship. And if you're not feeling worthy and loving who you are, how can you expect another to feel or to honor you or to see you as worthy or to love you? So self-love is extremely important in creating and connecting on a vibrational level to another. And so sometimes there's a period of time that you might label as being alone or single or separate, which requires really loving, accepting, and adoring who you are and honoring who you are, so that you're holding that vibration that then can match another. But when you're at that place on a vibrational level and you're like, I am ready and I am completely whole as I am. I'm not seeking someone else to fill something in me, but I'm coming from a place of wholeness, a place of power, a place of self-love, a place of worthiness, but I want to share my experience with another. And you're coming from that vibration, then you can move into the grid of the higher self, which are like orbs of light that are bouncing around the planet. Now, usually when we're doing grid work, we tap into the grid to do work to send energy, but you can also tap into the grid of soul energy in order to attract it. So you can move up in meditation into the higher realms and other dimensions where you're operating on the soul level, and you can begin to say, all right, I am vibrating at this frequency, and I am looking around for another orb or energy of light that is also vibrating at that frequency, and I am intending to attract that energy like a magnet to me to merge together. And you may begin to see yourselves connecting in that higher soul level. And as you begin to connect, you can make a decision to then ask to descend down and to begin to mirror it in this experience, in this reality as a relationship, and it will begin to show up. It is very important that when you are looking for a relationship, that you are very clear on your intention, but that you are open to possibilities, because sometimes we've heard as we listen to others who are looking for someone that they have defined what they are wanting to such a degree that they have limited it in the form aspect, but they are needing to connect to it on the soul aspect. So when you are defining what you are wanting to attract in a relationship with another, and although we know that many of you are like, well, that this person must be tall and they must be handsome, and they must be fit or whatever, it's very important not to put too many constraints around the physical form, but to really move into what you are wanting to tap into on the soul level. And when you are really tapping into the vibration at the soul level, and you begin to match that, it'll start to, there is a noise interference. It'll start to match in this reality. So what we're wanting you to do in the creating and attracting into your experience a relationship is to really tune into inviting those that are at your frequency with the intent that they're going to start to come into your experience and show themselves in perhaps lovely and unexpected ways, and that you're absolutely completely open to however they show up, and that telling yourself that you will have an awareness that you recognize them. Because sometimes what we notice is happening is that the being in which you're looking to have this relationship with is right in front of you, but you have so many parameters around what you think it should be in the form that you don't see it right there, or that it shows itself but you're not open to it because you've aligned with what you think. So we want you to open up and to utilize, like we utilize the spiral and the Vesica Pisces for creating. So in the creation process, you always want to begin with I am. So I am so grateful that a beautiful, loving partner that is matching my vibration has come into my experience, and we are having a joyful, beautiful relationship together. That's something simple, and you can refine it, but we want you to start to really put into form the sentence around and the energy, and feel the vibration of what you're wanting to create. Now, once you've started to do that, we want you to begin to lose yourself. And what do we mean by losing yourself? Losing yourself is the same thing as letting go of any identity to who you are. So you want to dissolve the name, you want to dissolve the body, you want to dissolve the room you're in, you want to dissolve the house you're in, you want to dissolve the country you're in, and then you want to let go of the earth, and then you're out in outer space in the nothingness, and you want to just go out until you're just floating in the nothingness, because it is in the nothingness that everything exists. Where everything and nothing is the quantum field of creation itself. And as you let go of everything and you move out there, then you can start to feel, all right, what frequency, what vibration do I want to align with? And then you can start to spin it. And as you begin to spin it, you can start to pull it like an energy. You're pulling it toward you. And as you start to pull it toward you, you're vibrating with it. And then you can intend with something more concrete in your sentence that it materializes. So I am so grateful, and it's always that it already is, because the universe never knows anything other than what it is you are saying, whether it has been past, present, or future. And so if you tell it it already is, utilizing the five senses that it has already occurred, it begins molecularly to start to form until it's actually vibrating in your frequency. And all of a sudden, someone comes to deliver a package, or a friend stops by and they have someone with them, and that vibrational match of who it is that you are conjuring up is in your experience. But you have to trust in it, you have to know it, you have to believe in it, you have to dissolve doubt. Oh, the belief, I can never meet anyone, there's no good guys out there, they're all big jerks, it's very difficult. There's COVID, how am I ever going to meet anybody? Every person I meet cheats on me, I'm not worthy, or they don't take care of me, or it's impossible, there's no good women, there's no good guys, I'm going to be alone. If that energy, if that rhetoric, if that thinking, if that continuous conversation is going around and around and around in your head, and you're speaking it even out loud and you're talking about it, well, of course, that's the vibration you're matching. And so sometimes if you have an experience that you understand to be true, and you may have had that experience, but then you repeat talking about that is, then you anchor that in, you keep matching that vibration, it keeps happening and it keeps growing. And then that vibration is so big that even if you were wanting something other than that, you can only continue to attract that or nothing, because that is what your belief is. So first you have to make sure if there is a limiting belief around meeting somebody that is ruminating, that it is pulled out by the root, meaning that you recognize it, see it, and are willing to pull it. and dissolve it. And then you have to go into the quantum with an open mind and field to find the vibration you're wanting to match in, with an absolute surrendering and knowing and belief that it is. If that is actually what you're wanting, because sometimes you say you are wanting the relationship, but there's a fear and you're protecting yourself and you're not allowing it to happen on some level, because if you do, you're afraid you'll get hurt. That's another belief that needs to be yanked up. So when all that stuff is clear, then you can go into that field of the vibration you're wanting to connect with, and it will very quickly come into form, and you will have that match to have that relationship. And so it's an evolutionary process, but it's just the same as clearing relationships that you already have that aren't going well. It's all about energy, and it's about recognizing the energy within you, the vibration you are having, the vibration you are wanting to attract, or the vibration you're wanting to clear something with, and starting to see beyond form, beyond what you think is to be back, go back and be the awareness, moving into the presence of being aware, rather than watching and looking at things from form. One of the ways to start to do that is, instead of when you're looking around in a room, looking at all of the objects, look at the empty space and start to feel the empty space. See if you can see anything in it. See if you can see it start to vibrate. See that it's just energy. It just has just as much energy as what you're looking at that's in form. Start to look at everything differently. Have more awareness of the emptiness, of the space between the breath, the space between the thought, the space between the object, the space between everything. In there lies the vibration of the energy that is resonating around you. And when you start to tune into what it is, and then you recognize that you can dial it in whatever you want, you're just tuning in like a radio station, or you're changing the channel on the television to what show you want to watch. It's like an algorithm. If you start looking on social media at spiritual things about love and unity and oneness and prosperity, then it starts feeding you more and more and more of that. You start looking at negativity and division and war and scarcity and stockpiling things, and the world's going to end, and we're all going to blow up, and all the horrible things, keeps feeding you that until that starts to become the frequency you're vibrating at, and that becomes your reality. You begin to vibrate at whatever frequency you put your attention toward. And it's no different with relationships. And it's snowballing, because the acceleration on the planet is moving so quickly right now that wherever you start to put energy, it's just snowballing and expanding. And that's why so many people's belief systems are just so quickly getting out of whack, and they're grappling, or they're attaching themselves to something that's not even based in truth anymore, because somehow they start looking at something, and then that feeds them more of that, to the point that they start to think that that's real. And then that is real. That's their reality. That's their vibration they're matching, and that becomes their experience. So be careful where you put your attention, what you look at, what you do. And it's no different if you're looking at a dating app. Who are you looking at? What frequency do you want to match? And is it matching the frequency that you are holding? And or is there a belief that you are not worthy enough to match the frequency you are wanting? When you believe that you are, then you can match whatever you are wanting, because it's simply about your own belief and where you're putting your energy, where you're putting your attention, who it is that you're vibrating with, and beginning to harness and to master energy and vibration. When you start to pay attention to it, to be the loving awareness of your experience rather than engaged as so much in the play. Step back from the drama, step back from the play, get out of your role, take off your costume, sit in the audience for a while, and just watch it and see that it's just energy, and it's just a play playing out. And when you step back without being so attached to it, when you step back and you see it for what it is, and then you can just be a loving witness to it. And from that perspective, then you can say, you see the character over there, that's the frequency I want to match. And then you can match that frequency. All right. Well, I think that's enough for today. I love you so very, very much. I am very delighted and excited to be here and to share my love with all of you and to remind you how perfect and divine you are, and that anything at all that you are wanting to create or to heal or to connect to, you can. It's a willingness to surrender, to open your heart, to shed light on your shadow, to bring it to the surface, to heal, and to see the divine in yourself and all of those around you, even those that are cloaked in the deepest darkness. Underneath is the most magnificent and beautiful light. The same light that dwells in you dwells in them. It is no different. So let go of your judgment and remember that everyone is just a reflection of yourself, which is God itself. Many blessings, much love, and good day.
Good day.